Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Skip Rutherford. I'm Dean of the Clinton School, and welcome tonight on this very special occasion as we talk about youth, young, and African American in 2015, and as we also commemorate the Dr. Martin Luther King holiday. And we thank you for sharing that time with us. This past fall, after the Michael Brown shooting in Ferguson, Missouri, I met with a group of African American male students from the Clinton School during an informal lunch session, mainly to listen and to better understand their views, how they felt, their reactions, and their thoughts. Following that discussion, which I will say was quite memorable, I had 4 reactions which I wrote down: educational, powerful, sad, and surprising. And with that, I went to 2 people on the faculty of the Clinton School who were versed both in the areas of race and diversity, but also in the areas of dialogue and conversation. And Dr. Charlotte Williams, the director of our Center on Community Philanthropy, which is helping co-host this event, and Dr. Christy Standifer, professor of communications, I went to both and said, I was really overwhelmed and touched by this discussion. Where do you think we should go from here? And based on their advice and on the lunch with the students, this panel on this night, this special night, is a direct result of those conversations. Each of the panelists will introduce herself or himself at the beginning of a 5-minute presentation. After the 4 presentations, then Dr. Standifer and Dr. Williams will moderate a question and answer session, and then at the conclusion of the program, we'll discuss the next steps. So I hope you are as inspired and as challenged, and maybe even for some of you as surprised as I was, as we present Young and African American in 2015, and I'm going to ask Kiana Brown to lead off. Welcome. Thank you all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the dean mentioned, my name is Kiana Brown, and I'm a second-year student here at the Clinton School. I'm a graduate of Clark Atlanta University, and I received my master's in social work from the University of Texas at Austin. To me, being young and African American in 2015 evokes a sense of pride, pain, and peril. The larger context of why we are here this evening surrounds the tragic deaths of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and Eric Garner. One of the things for me that was hardest to deal with in each of these cases was the lack of due process. It wasn't that these men were 100% innocent or that they had no culpability in any of their wrongdoing. But what has been so difficult to accept is that a veteran cop or a well-intentioned neighborhood watchman is seemingly well within their rights to be judge, jury, and executioner if the alleged wrongdoer is a person of color. At our country's earliest foundation is the idea that we are a nation of laws and that all men are innocent until proven guilty. As we gather here today, Dzhokhar Tarzanov, the alleged Boston Marathon bomber, who killed 3 people and injured over 260, sits in jail awaiting his day in court, while Trayvon, Michael, and Eric lie cold in their graves without ever having had their chance to speak. For many African Americans, these aren't just names used to incite a rally or a protest. These are our sons, and let us not forget our daughters, our hope for a brighter and a better future. Yet their treatment and the injustice that they have gone through reminds us of a past not easily forgotten and a wound not yet fully healed. While you see Trayvon, we also see Emmett Till, the 14-year-old boy who in 1955 was beaten and killed by two white men in Mississippi for what they felt was him stepping out of his place. Even after being positively identified, his attackers were also found not guilty and set free. However, even as we seek justice, we are reminded to still be a just people. And the young black man who shot those two NYPD officers, Ramos and Lou, was also unjustified, and he was wrong. As Dr. King once remarked, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. A person's skin color does not and should not define them. My complexion doesn't dictate my intelligence, my employment status, or how many children I may or may not bear. My ethnicity does not determine my level of intensity, my faith, my goals, or my passion. While being young and African American today does present its fair share of challenges, I am yet hopeful for the continued progress and change that I see. I am proud that myself, along with my fellow panelists, I can wear my hair in its natural state, the way that it grows out of my hair, and be accepted for it. I am proud that even in the age of reality TV starlets, two young black teens named Malia and Sasha Obama can still shine as role models for other young girls to emulate. As we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King today, I am thankful not only for all that he accomplished, but also for the light that he ignited in myself and others who continue to fight for social justice. To be young and African American in 2015 is to stand up still to the challenges of racism, of oppression, of sexism, and injustice. However, it is also continuing that fight and continuing to be a champion of diversity, of innovation, and of equality. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Melvin Deshaun Clayton. I'm a native of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and a graduate of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. I'm very happy to participate on this panel tonight, and I think that conversations such as this are very important, and I'm happy that there's such a large turnout. I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar, but each year, students are asked to recommend a book for the public to read here at the Clinton School, and I selected The Souls of Black Folks by Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. I chose this book because it was written, although it was written in 1903, I think that the words in this book are still very relevant today. Maybe more so than even back at that time, and I'm gonna share a portion of that particularly sticks out to me. The Negro is a sort of seventh son, born with a veil, a gift with second sight in this American world, a world which yields him no true self-consciousness, but only lets him see himself through the revelation of the world. It is a peculiar sensation, this double consciousness, this sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, of measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on in amused contempt and pity. I feel that this sense of double consciousness is greater now, more than 112 years ago, because if we think about it, black and white people did not come into very much communication with each other. But today, we live together, we work together, we socialize together. And personally, and I can't speak for anyone else, a large number of the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis are white people. And for that matter, sometimes I find myself being asked very generalizable questions, about my race. and that's not fair, you know? Just dealing with why does this happen or why is this, but I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'll talk about one particular instance, and I didn't even talk to my parents about this, so they're gonna be surprised about this. They're over there. So, so I was out to dinner or something with a group. I was the only African American there, and some kind of way the conversation got on fatherless homes. And my parents will be celebrating their 28th wedding anniversary in August. Clap it up. I love you, Mom and Dad. Yeah, they'll be celebrating their anniversary. And one of the people, I didn't really know this guy, but he was like, Melvin, how do you feel about fatherless African-American homes? I'm like, I don't know anything about that, dude. Like you know, and I feel like too often those type of things happen. And I don't have a problem discussing race at all. And another thing, another incident that I want to tell people about, because it's so unfortunate that these things are still happening, that people are so ignorant to the things that they say. One night I went out with two of my friends. We went to an establishment in the River Market, and it was myself, another black guy, and a white guy. We all have college degrees. We're all doing quite well. The black guy, he went to UAPB with me. He currently works in the Little Rock School District, and the white guy, I'm not exactly sure where he went to school, but he works in finance. And so we're in this establishment, and we end up meeting like this group of women. They're older, they're in their 30s. And one of the ladies, she was just very... Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I mean older than us, That's what I meant. Anyway, I'm so sorry, everyone. But we're at this establishment, and we begin to have conversations with the ladies and her friends, and one lady was just particularly vocal, and she just ranted and raved about how excellent my friend and I were. She would not say anything about this guy working in finance and things. I guess it was just expected that he was exceptional and that he could dress well and that he was well-spoken. But it was such a surprise to her. And I just got tired of it. And I was like, please do not praise me for doing what I'm supposed to do. Don't do that. It's not a compliment. It's condescending in a way. I mean, so I think that, and also another thing, when people speak of not seeing race or color, and I'm going to close with this, I don't believe in that. I believe that it's very important that people pay attention to race and color, because if you don't see the color of my skin, I'm invisible to you. So that's...
Hi, everyone. My name is Akayla Jones, and I graduated from Henderson State with a degree in vocal music, and my minor was sociology, which led me to the Clinton School. So tonight's program is Young and African American in 2005. And excuse me, 2015. I don't want to go back that far. Lord help us. Whew. Identity is the essence of who we are. It's what leads us down our respective journeys, and it changes over time. It's affected by external influences and our internal reflection. My experience as an African American has deeply shaped my distinct self, and though I am a black woman, my identity is one of complexity. I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a student, I'm an artist and a dreamer. I am a sweet tea Southerner, okay? I'm an American. I am your neighbor. I'm your future colleague, a leader in our collective community. I'm a glimpse of the progress and hope of our nation. I am not a token. I'm especially selected for a time as this. I'm not underprivileged, but seeking and reaching into the untapped potential of our world. I am not despairing, but enjoying every opportunity to exercise my ingenuity and resourcefulness to create for future generations. I am not oppressed, but I am pressing against restraint and accepting the freedom that is my birthright by humanity, by citizenship, and by legacy. I know who I am. I'm a person who cares and a person who hurts, who loves and desires to be loved. No stereotypical label, no disregard or denial of my gifts, injustice, or inequity is going to make me forget that. But I am fortunate. I'm 23 and I'm still young and black. Okay? And amazing, I'm alive. I've lived through curious and playful childhood, rebellious adolescence, which didn't last long thanks to the village raising me. And now I'm a grown woman, as my grandmother likes to tell me. And as a grad student, I'm just like trying to say that I'm on the cusp because I'm still kind of enjoying the comforts of home. But again, I'm 23 and I'm alive. Many children of color don't reach this milestone. In fact, many children of all hues fall prey to a system that destroys innocence, destiny, and life. A system that seeks to distort, diminish, detain, and douse generation after generation. And it won't face its atrocities. And worse off, many of the system's beneficiaries refuse to take ownership of our collective painful past. And they turn a blind eye to injustice because it's not about race. Okay? And they're right, you know, because it's not about race, it's not about age, and it's not about sex. But it's about true, breathing, and bleeding humanity. It's staring at you, touching you, sharing your office space, your neighborhoods, your birthday wishes with your ambitions, okay? With your horror, your triumph, your devastation. It's serving your country and your God. So I am young, I am a woman, I'm black, okay? But I am a human and I'm present.
Good evening. I'm going to run with this young and African American as long as I still can, but my beard graying is obviously a clue that my time's running short, right? But I'm glad to be sharing this stage with these wonderful students tonight. I'm a graduate of the Clinton School. I'm also a graduate of Philander Smith College with distinction in my field, and that's something that I'm very proud of, to sit in front of you as an African American and say that education means the world to me, and that what was afforded to me here at the Clinton School I'm gonna run with. So I'm glad for the opportunities and certainly glad to be here tonight. I'm currently the Director of Operations here for the Clinton School as well, and I'm gonna take you through a little historical knowledge about John Dunkley that gives you a lens into how I see the world and how the world has been framed for me. I grew up in Kissimmee, Florida. Many of you that know of Kissimmee, it's right outside Orlando. So Disney World, it brings, I like to say, folks from all over the world are dragged there by their kids and they never get to go home, right? They never leave. So I grew up with folks from all races, which to me, that was normal. That was what the world was. And then I had this thing called 16 and get in my car, and so it was bittersweet because I was excited and I had all this freedom. But then I had blue and red lights flashing behind me. Constantly. And when I get pulled over, I'd be asked, where are your drugs? Where are your guns? And I remember one time just telling the officer, you know, I don't have any drugs. I don't have a gun. And he's like, yeah, right. You got something. Can I search? And I'm like, sure. I didn't know that I had rights, and I could have been like, no, you can't search me. But I was like, I'm a good kid. I have nothing to hide. I was a DARE kid. You guys remember the DARE campaign? I'm getting old. Yeah. I was a DARE kid. I believed in all of that. But then when you're pulled over and you're asked those questions, it makes you wonder, why? Like, I just have a taillight out. Does this require a search, right? So I started to see that race does matter, and I'm an African-American male. I'm a black male. The messages that my parents had taught me that the police were a bigger threat to me than members of my own community. I used to think my parents were nuts. I'll just be honest with you. I'm like, come on, mom and dad, you know, the cops are not that bad. I started to see that reality as I grew into becoming a young man, unfortunately. I have to tell you guys that all of my story is not sad and isn't that the police harassed me and asked me about drugs and guns. I left Kissimmee in the year 2000, and I moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana in pursuit of higher education. That's where I started my college career until I transferred into Philander Smith College. It's also something that changed my life forever. I met my wife We got married. My wife is Caucasian, so we're in an interracial marriage. We didn't understand what all that meant. We just loved each other. Now I tell my folks, we're young and dumb and in love, right? Didn't understand that, this racial makeup of our union would have ramifications, that we would get stares from people when we would go to eat, that when we were apartment hunting and looking for a place, we were excited. I was telling the folks before we came out here, we were really excited because we were young, didn't have a whole lot of money, and this was a nice apartment in a decent community in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And we were excited until we walked out and saw the N-word written all over my wife's car. And so that was one of the first times that our union, to me, became a problem for others, and it was hard for me to understand that, why what we shared mattered to anyone at all, but that it mattered so much that you would take the time to scribble that on the car. So those are some of those instances where you really think back to, okay, I'm alive, I'm happy, I'm young, I found my spouse, but I'm black in the South. And so at that point, I really started to think, man, I did grow up in Disney World, a fantasy land. In Baton Rouge, it was black, white, and Mexican. And that was very different for me. It was very difficult for me to fit in and find a place because I was used to, as you look around this room, a diverse crowd representing all races, all hues. And I didn't have that in that community. And I knew it was time to leave. So Philander Smith College was going to provide me an opportunity to play basketball until I tore my leg up. So once I was injured and couldn't play basketball, I still had my opportunity here, and I ran with it again because education has been that pillar for me. And so I focused in on education. I focused in on my scholastic endeavors, was elected student government president, which is something I never really imagined, but was awesome in its own right. From there, again, here at the Clinton School, and had the opportunity to study. But before I moved to Little Rock, I did have apprehension. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you all honestly. I was a little concerned with this place called Little Rock because I knew of President Clinton. But what I didn't know, or I knew about President Clinton and I knew about banging in Little Rock. So those are my two things to draw from. And I'm thinking, boy, President Clinton's fantastic. I hope they still don't have gangs there, right? Again, it was one of those decisions that you take this risk and you don't know how things will be in the community, how you'll be accepted. I knew I had moved my new wife, who again has greatly changed my world, to a great community when the white guy that was my neighbor came down, never met us before, he just saw the U-Haul, came outside, welcomed us to this apartment complex in North Little Rock, asked if he could help unload the boxes, and offered me a cold beverage. And I was like, boy, this is where I'm gonna spend the rest of my life. I also want to share that, I know I'm running over my 5 minutes here. When my Hurricane Katrina hit, and my wife's family's from New Orleans, and the family came up here and they stayed with us, simply seeing the Louisiana tags in my driveway prompted my neighbors to bring groceries, neighbors who I hadn't even met yet. I hadn't met all of the neighbors in the community, and folks started bringing food. Again, another testament to the great character of people here in this community. It wasn't really about white or black. It was like, oh, y'all must be here from Katrina. And I thought, wow, and they're bringing us dinner. So those are things that I've experienced here. Little Rock's always been a great place of opportunity. I've worked for Governor Beebe. I work here at the Clinton School. I've finished both my academic degrees here at this school. I've traveled to Belize and worked with kids that need that kind of mentorship and guidance, and all of that has been provided not only through Little Rock, our state legislature that appropriates the funding for this fine institution. That is the community that I am proud of here in Arkansas, here in Little Rock, and that's the story I want to share. So for me, again, I'm riding out this young thing as long as I can. In 2015, life's pretty good. Thank you.
Here at the Clinton School, everything we do, that we learn about, research, write about, is always encased in our commitment to equity, inclusion, and social justice. So that requires a revived commitment to social change, where purposeful and sometimes uncomfortable conversations about race and privilege have to take place. So for the remainder of the evening, we're going to have a conversation where we're going to pose questions to the panelists, and we will open it up to the audience to give you an opportunity to be heard and to ask questions. So the first question for the entire panel, anyone can dive in. When we first invited you to be a part of a panel where you would speak openly about being young, African American in 2015, what was your initial reaction?
I guess I'll start out I was in the conversation that Dean Rutherford spoke about with the African American males, so it wasn't that much of a surprise to me that the conversation would continue. I'm definitely happy to see different perspectives. I feel like each of us has a very different perspective because I think far too often the African American community is portrayed as just being like, boom, black, poor, impoverished, just like, you know? And so I'm very happy that we're all able, yeah, at risk. Yeah, we're not supposed to be at the Clinton School or something. But I'm very happy that the Clinton School did this, and yeah, I'm just happy. I'm very happy, and I want to see where this goes from here.
So for me, I'd have to say initially I was very excited and I was very honored, and I was like, oh my gosh, me, Akela, the girl who doesn't really even talk in class but writes really great papers? Oh, okay, this is gonna be cool. Well, somebody will actually hear that I have a voice. And then reality set in and I was like, oh my gosh. This is the Clinton School. This is a place where people from all walks of life come to discuss, and people are gonna see me and hear me. Oh, okay, whoa. And I thought about myself and who is Akela? And I'm not politically correct. I'm just me, an individual. And I talked to some people, and I talked to Jonathan because I was like, well, they're gonna ask me questions. Do they wanna hear the truth about what it means to be a black person, not just in America, but in Arkansas, in Little Rock, in the Clinton School, where there are only a handful of us. We're a majority up here. There are a few people sitting around, our classmates. Thank you guys for coming to support. But there's only a few of us. This is a reality. So do people want to really hear our perspective? So I was skeptical, but I'm so glad I'm here to participate.
I would say, I was going to say, I was also actually really surprised that the Clinton School decided to do this. And surprised mainly because I know that I think Jonathan mentioned having a conversation with his parents. There are lots of conversations that happen among black families, that happen in black communities, that happen in black barbershops or beauty salons, or, you know, at the table with your auntie. But those conversations don't always happen outside. And so I was really, after being surprised, like, oh, we're gonna have this conversation, kind of like what the killer said, like a real conversation. I was really thankful that we could have this conversation and have a really open and honest conversation so that it gets past just the community to say, okay, well, let's talk about it. Maybe you're angry about something, maybe you're upset, maybe things are going well and you're proud about that, but let's also, you know, let's talk to a diverse group of people about it and really have some conversations, and not just conversations, but let's see what we can do past just talking. I think talking is great. I think debate is wonderful, but I think you also have to have action. And I think when you have a voice and you have action with that voice, then that's when you have change. And so I think it takes everyone to evoke change. So I was really, like I said, I was surprised and I was thankful, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
I was excited. I kind of have a perspective as an alumnus of this institution and now working here. So when I was invited to be a part of the panel, naturally you think, okay, what is appropriate for me to share to my employer and to the community? Naturally, right? But when I saw the genuine nature of Dean Hoffpower, Dean Rutherford, Dr. Standiford, Dr. Williams, when we had the conversation after Eric Garner and the decision to not indict, and I saw a level of aggravation at the system from the leadership here, and I thought, boy, they may be more upset about this than I am. I remember Dr. Hoffpower asking me, are you okay today? And I thought, yeah, you know, other than my kid having the sniffles, everything's good to go in the sense of my personal world. It's difficult for me to internalize those things that others experience to the point where I'm miserable about it. I understand the ramifications. I was bothered by it, but not to the point where I had to miss work, you know, but that I had that level of support here, that are you okay with this? So fast forward to this conversation with the African-American males, again, that genuine wanting to know about the experience that Dean Rutherford had, and that, guys, this is a quiet, safe space for you to share honestly what your experiences are, not what you think I want to hear, but what your true experiences are. I knew that I could easily do this because the support was right.
Nice segue to the next question. Akela tried to take us back to 2005. So let's think about 2025. And so if we reconvened a panel such as this, how would you want it to be different? And what are the actions, going to what Kiana said, what are the actions that we can take as a community to make it different? And I thought I'd ask it first to Jonathan, because Jonathan has two wonderful little girls that will be growing up, and in 10 years, I hope it's a better world.
Definitely. Thanks, Christy. In 2025, I would hope that the conversation shifts a little more past the hue of our skin, right? I think we're bright enough people to move past that and not have that be really what we're talking about, African American in 2015, right? Because we know it's still relevant, it's still important, but I would hope by the time we hit 2025, and I think the demographics will support this, more and more children are mixed race, more and more children are biracial. It's not odd, it's not strange to see a mixed race child. So I hope that we understand each other a little more clearly and that the conversation is still not on what I really think is surface level.
All right, we're going to open it up to the audience. Just to make certain that everyone gets a chance to ask their question if they have one, we're going to ask that when you stand, that you simply ask your question instead of making comments. So if you have a question, please lift your hand. All right. There's someone coming with a microphone. Mm-hmm. Right here. Mm-hmm. Ruth, please. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for being here, each of you. I have an article that's called When Well-Meaning White People Make You Nuts. And I know that I would assume most of the white people in here are here to learn more and to quit making you nuts. So I wondered if each of you might share a time when somebody inadvertently did something really stupid that you could help us maybe to avoid that, or at least make you less nuts.
Melvin's ready. Go, Melvin.
Go first, Kayla.
Okay, go, Kayla.
I'll go first, and I'll try to be as brief as I possibly can. So, in my undergrad, I studied music, and I enjoyed it. I loved it. I'm so passionate about it. And I studied classical music. And one thing that really bothered me was how I was always pigeonholed into singing spirituals or singing something that is supposed to represent the Black experience. That's only one part of who I am. And I feel like it was so difficult. Here I am in the Marriage of Figaro playing Carabino, and people are having a hard time figuring out what costume to put me in, or how I should wear my hair. And so you just kind of have to figure that out for yourself, even if you are a beginner. So I think that probably was one thing that really dampened my experience in the music department.
I kind of talked about this earlier with the experience that I had at the restaurant down the street. And I really feel like the lady, she meant well, and she thought that what she was saying was completely okay to say, wow, like I'm not used to this. And one other thing that I forgot to say, because another part that she brought in about race was, I forgot what company she said she worked for, but she was like, wow, I never see young, she just said young men, but I knew that she meant young Black men. She was like, I never see young men who are this great. They never come interview. Can you send some of your friends my way? I'm like, that's just not okay. I mean, and it's okay to be ignorant to facts and what to say, but just learning how to phrase the things that you say, especially when they have to deal with sensitive subjects like race.
Well, I would say I think that we all have personal responsibility that we need to take. Kind of like Jonathan, I'm from New Orleans, but I went to undergrad in Austin, Texas, and I went to graduate school in Austin, Texas. I went to undergrad in Atlanta. And Atlanta is a majority Black city, there are a lot of progressives and professionals, and it was a great experience. And then I went to Austin, Texas. And Austin, Texas was very different for me. And, I would get invited to go bungee jumping sometimes. And I'm like, Black people don't bungee jump. And I would get invited to go camping and sleep out in the tent in the woods. I'm like, Black people don't do that. And that was wrong, because there are probably some Black people who do those things. But here I am perpetuating a stereotype. What I would say honestly is use the internet. Like, we have the internet, we have technology, use the internet. I have no problem answering a question. But if you ask me a question like a person. I think Akela mentioned that, like, I'm more than just black. Ask me a question like a person, but not like an anthropologist. Like, oh my God, let me touch your hair. Oh my God, let me do this. Like, I'm not some cultural, artifacts. I'm a person. So use the internet first and foremost. Yes, black people have different types of hair. My hair texture and her hair texture are different, and they probably do different things. So I can't speak for, what my experience is, and it's not the same as her experience. So, but if you want to talk to me, then just talk to me, but talk to me like a person, and I will definitely talk to you back the same way and respect you as well.
I'd have to say that to something Melvin alluded to earlier, as if completing my bachelor's degree is exceptional and extraordinary. How'd you get into the Clinton School? And I'm like, I applied. I was accepted, and it's like, well, how do you do these things? And I'm just like, this is so what I'm expected to do in my own right. This is what I set myself up to do by studying and being involved. This is the life I live by, the work that I've put in. Nothing that's so extraordinary or exceptional. Or the pat on the shoulder, you're a good one. I've gotten that, and I'm thinking, a good, I guess. Maybe you're trying to compliment me, right? But that, as an African American, as whites, as whoever, we can strive for things and be successful, and it doesn't mean that it's some extraordinary leap of faith to find ourselves in that lane. So I think, Ruth, that would be the stuff that drives me nuts.
All right, we've got more questions. There was another hand here. Yes, I knew.
I would like to ask you.
If you'll wait until he brings the microphone.
I would like to ask you what part your faith plays in your life.
For me, my faith is very important to me. It is something that I have grown up with. I'm a Christian. I definitely feel like now, later in life, as I've been exposed to, as Melvin said, I have, friends of different races and international, not just American. I've been exposed to lots of different people and lots of different things. So I am still a Christian. I definitely consider myself a Christian, but I am open to worshiping with other people in other ways. And I thank God for all of the experiences that I've had. I feel like I have definitely been blessed. I cannot, sit here and claim to be have this horrible life, because I really don't. So for me, my faith, the way I was raised, I definitely believe in prayer. I believe that prayer does work. It changes things. And by the grace of God, I've had many blessings, and it's something that is definitely important to me in my life. However, I do think that, excuse me, I don't want to take up too much time. I can't remember if it was Dr. King or whomever. I think it may have been him who said that Sunday is the most segregated day of the week. I definitely think that we can do more to worship together. I think that so many times, it's like, okay, well, this person's Methodist, and they're AME, and they're Catholic, and they're Baptist, and da-da-da-da. And I do. I've gone to African American churches here, and I really enjoy it, and I definitely, probably like a lot of people, enjoy more the music. It's different than some of the white churches that I've been to, but I think if you believe in something higher than yourself, then you believe in something higher than yourself, period. And so I think we could do more to just say, okay, if I'm going to relate to you as a person, then I relate to you as a person first and foremost, and we can worship together, and that's okay.
Okay, I like Kiana. I'm a Christian as well. I was raised in the church every Sunday. My mom was the Sunday school teacher. My dad was Sunday school superintendent. So yeah, I really do believe in the power of prayer. I really do. I think that the prayers of my ancestors are what got me here today. I really do believe that. I feel like a lot of people, I think that my religion, Christianity, may be one of the most judgmental religions as well. I know tons of Christians who will say, oh my God, you have a friend who doesn't believe in God, or oh my God, you have a friend who's whatever. And I'm not like that. I don't discriminate against people. I think that people are just people, and that's my take on religion. I believe in Jesus.
One of the questions we wanted to pose before the panel is that President Obama's administration recently announced the My Brother's Keeper initiative. And this is a national initiative that challenges states to create and support strategies that improve the opportunities and the outcomes for black men and boys. So if I could ask the panelists if you could make a couple of recommendations for Arkansas. What are some of the strategies that you would recommend?
I think it's a great initiative, and for the state, if we're looking at adopting any of what the initiative is trying to accomplish, I would say most of the funding should gear towards mentorship. I wholeheartedly believe in the one-on-one relationship and the impact there from that relationship. So if you're an adult and you're a professional and you've accomplished your collegiate degrees and you have accolades in a professional setting, going into some of these communities and working one-on-one with these young people, to me, is a way that we make a difference. When I spent time coaching in North Little Rock at the Boys and Girls Club, it was, I would tell the guys, I really don't care about the basketball. This is the vehicle that allows me to interact with you. We'll win the championship, but, right, coach? The reason we're here, though, is that I can get you guys to think about what life has to offer after high school. What are you gonna do when you're no longer gonna stay at your mom's house? What are you gonna do when you graduate high school? You're gonna go to college. And so I think through that initiative, we have a tremendous opportunity to ratchet up the mentorship programs. Arkansas Commitment comes to mind as a program, again, working with young people to provide that mentorship, to introduce them to successful members of the community and allow them to see someone that they can model positive behaviors as they grow.
In terms of the initiative from President Obama, I would say I definitely agree with Jonathan about the mentorship. I would also say more funding for education. My father is a black man. I have an 18-year-old brother who's in college who's a black man. I'm dating a black man. But I think that education is important. I'm very proud that the guy who I'm dating, he is a teacher. And I think that so many times we get lost in, like, oh, okay, what they mentioned, like, oh, this isn't, I'm not special, I'm supposed to go to college. And you should. And it's well known that, they create prisons based on, third and fourth grade statistics. So I think that we have to start really young, whether we have more black male teachers, whether we have black mentors who come to the school, whether we have more after school programs for black boys and for black girls. Let's not forget about the girls. To make sure that, children, that minority children are definitely not just in school, but they're graduating from middle school, they're graduating from high school, they're going to college, so that it's not just Jonathan and it's not just Melvin up here, that this is not the exception, that, you can have 50% black at the Clinton School, and that's not a problem. It doesn't make the Clinton School all of a sudden a black school. It's more than 50% white. It's not a white school. So I think that, focusing on education, making education a priority in the community, in the state, even, in daycare, making sure that if there are young mothers who have to drop their kids off, that they have quality daycare, that they're not just watching TV, so that children are actually learning. I think that would definitely help to do a lot for when black kids become black men and black women.
All right, thank you very much. I think we need to close it down now, or take one more question? Okay, yeah.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out. I just want to ask the question, what's the danger of making this conversation sort of like mission work when we focus on Eric Garner or Mike Brown and not Isidore Monroe, who was murdered here in Arkansas, or the many other folk that were murdered by police? Are we really having a hard conversation when we give people pass to talk about the hurt that happened in our community? Rather, it's kind of like we're talking about a national conversation that no one really in this room is attached to, and we know there may be family members of the Monroe family or the Hobbs family or the many other folk that have been murdered by local police officers.
I think that's what prompts this conversation. The national attention that corporate media has paid in, that they've given to the Garner situation, the Mike Brown situation. I don't know why, but in 2014, it really just attracted all races to march across the country. And I think this is why we're here today, not to dismiss what's happened in the Little Rock community, not to kind of pass over or pretend that we don't have issues in our own community to address. But I do think that we would be remiss if we didn't think about Mike Brown being gunned down the way he was in the streets and the attention that was garnered from that. Same with, poor pun, Eric Garner and what happened with him. Again, that galvanized folks all over. And honestly, from my perspective, whatever has us having a conversation, I'm glad to be doing it. You know, whatever prompts us to have these conversations. But I think your point's well taken. We can't overlook what happens right here in our own community and discuss New York, St. Louis without talking about Little Rock as well. And I think that's a plan for these future conversations. This is the beginning of our dialogue, and the conversations that I think Dr. Sanford will speak about. That's where we really start tackling some of the hard issues that definitely still need to be tackled.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Good place to take us next. As Jonathan said, this is just the start of the conversations. We plan to have actual community conversations around the city, 1 in January, 2 in February. We don't have the exact dates yet, but we would like your help in deciding what the topics would be, looking at people who want to partner with us to be hosts of these conversations. If you know of venues that you think would be great for us to hold these conversations, we would appreciate it. The students here at the Clinton School are trained on how to be facilitators of conversation in a way that moves it beyond the dialogue. If it's just the dialogue, that's not enough. We have to come up with action plans. What are action plans that allow us to live in a different society, in a society in which we do have justice, in which we do have equity? So we're asking for your help, if you could. They're passing around little orange pieces of paper, and if you have any ideas, if you could put them on those pieces of paper, we would really appreciate it. And don't feel like you have to. So I think I'm going to turn it back over to Dean Rutherford.
Thank you all. Yeah, let me say that this is only the beginning. So we thank you very much for participating. Let's give our panelists a round of applause here.